Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast covers everything tech. The hottest mobile phones, tablets, games. We review it, rate it, test it. Whether you're Microsoft or Apple, Android or iPhone, we'll give it to you black and white. The Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time it is. Hope it's good and welcome. Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Technology Podcast, brought to you by none other than the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jake Durkin, and today I'm going to be taking you on a bit of an adventure. Where are we going? What are we seeing? Well, we're going to be talking about converged infrastructure. I know, it's a little daunting. It's a bit scary, but it's okay. We're going to also talk about InVision App and Logrocket and the crazy things they're doing. And then we're going to talk about smoking meat. Wait, this is a technology podcast. What is he? It doesn't matter. Stay with me. It's going to be crazy. And last but not least, come a little bit closer. Okay, we're going to talk about something that was leaked by a gigantic company named after a small fruit. Shh. All right. Well, again, my name's Jake Durkin. I'm super excited to talk to you about this stuff. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Cue the music. Are they still there? Yeah, they are? Okay. I didn't scare you away quite yet, which is shocking, and I think you should be worried for your own psychological health. But regardless, you're here, we're talking, it's going to be a good time. All right. Now, what is converged infrastructure, you ask? Well, before I tell you, I'm going to have to hit you with a quick nerd alert. Because the things we're talking about right now are pretty highbrow. And I'm not going to get too into it. I'm not going to go crazy. But converged infrastructure is not something you hear about on a daily basis. Why do you need to know about converged infrastructure? Well, if you're a business, you definitely need to know about it. So, for those of you who up until now have had little to no need for such knowledge, prepare to have your eyes opened. Open your eyes and see that your eyes are open. All right, so let's break it down. What is converged infrastructure? Well, the best way to go about this is to say it as simply as possible. But that's not very easy, so here we go. So converged infrastructure is a way of structuring, no pun intended, it's a way of structuring multiple components into a single optimized computing package. Components like servers, data storage devices, networking equipment, and software for IT infrastructure, management, automation, and orchestration. I'm falling asleep just thinking, okay, I'm just kidding. What this means in simple terms is it's basically a network of hardware and non-hardware that is stitched together. Let's think of a metaphor. Like a football team. Yes. So, metaphorically speaking, stepping way back, most companies have been for a long time playing pickup football with random players who have never practiced and or played together beforehand. But since they all understand the game and what each player's responsibility is, it at least works, But converged infrastructure is like raising each player from birth to play football with their specific teammates for the rest of their lives. They know how to communicate with each other because they've practiced together since they were born, and they perform better than any other team on the face of the planet. That's basically converged infrastructure. Did that make sense? I don't think I'm doing a good job of this. Okay, so it's basically a bunch of components that historically have been separate, like your network and your the hardware with the network and with the storage. They've been separate. A lot of different companies specializing in each mode, and instead, one manufacturer and one company builds all of it together, more or less, or at least they build them to be highly compatible so they connect. And one of the leading companies in this area is Dell, or Dell EMC, if you're familiar with them. So converged infrastructure, the key benefits when you go to someone like Dell is to accelerate IT operations. They deliver maximum performance. They offer protection for mission-critical workloads, and they're making sure to meet the cloud era head-on, so that companies are more capable of really allocating their resources and also leveraging new technology. So companies like Dell EMC use converged infrastructure to transform the way that businesses do business. They simplify deployment and management, support high-performance workloads, and just make the best out of the hardware that, because it was designed together, is ultra-compatible. And some would say hyper-compatible. Why do you say hyper, Jake? Why are you using the word hyper? Well, because they also offer hyper-converged infrastructure, which is their leading product line for businesses. They have the VX Block, which is this gigantic, like fridge-size system that has everything built into it, and it's all made by Dell EMC, so it's all super compatible, and you're basically running your business on the fastest network that is also highly capable of working with cloud-based systems. And just imagine working on the fastest computer and fastest systems that you can get. That's what they offer, and it's incredible. What is it doing? I mean, imagine it's like Watson, you know? Watson holds a lot of weight. Why does Watson hold a lot of weight? Well, because it can process so much data. It can process so many things, and it emphasizes the implementation of artificial intelligence. And obviously, we haven't hit the peak of artificial intelligence yet, but we're on our way. And stuff like converged infrastructure and hyper-converged infrastructure are getting us step by step closer to being able to do that. So, why do I need to know this? Well, the potential impact of hyper-converged infrastructure is that companies will no longer have to deal with computational and storage restrictions like they have. And despite the fact that it's still a little too early to prove that it can replace storage arrays in all market segments, it's likely to further simplify management and increase resource utilization rates where it does apply. Not only that, but according to Business Wire and Berkshire Hathaway, the global hyper-converged infrastructure market size, that's a mouthful, is expected to reach $27 billion by 2025, rising at a market growth of 33.2% CAGR during the forecast period. That's insane. That's a huge growth, and not only a huge growth, but a huge market. And that's because of the fact that hyper-converged infrastructure systems allow for the integration of storage systems, servers, and network switches, and thereby they can be managed under the same single system through all instances of hyper-converged infrastructure. So the built-in management functionalities ensure convenience and usability, and thereby the software-defined storage has a great potential to yield better scalability and resource efficiencies. Also, organizations can start at a smaller scale and expand their resources as and when required. And HCI vendors promote potential cost savings as aspects like IT labor, data center power and space, and avoidance and license and software, yada, yada, yada. Anyways, the companies that have been profiled and are leaders, apart from Dell EMC, are Cisco Systems, Microsoft Corporation, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise Company, NEC Corporation, IBM, NET App, Hitachi, et cetera, et cetera. And the list keeps growing because it is such a high-growth opportunity for any business to get into. And with all these tech giants, or at least the tech giants that are kind of smaller than Apple, because everybody's smaller than Apple for some reason, they just have cash piles. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. That's an interesting story. But all these other companies are seeing their product lines sort of just at maturity and needing more areas of growth. So many of these tech giants are investing in this because it's a continued resource of income, sort of like what we're going to talk about later with Apple. But it's one that is very valued and more fair than what we're going to talk about with Apple. I'm teasing you so much. Oh my God, this is going to be crazy. Anyways, there's a new company, Nutanix, I believe is how it's pronounced, and it announced its general availability of Nutanix clusters, which is Hyper-Converged Infrastructure, HCI, which is what I talked about earlier, on Amazon Web Services, what everybody refers to as AWS, the public cloud. And key use cases targeted are the ability to lift and shift workloads to the public cloud, in particular in cloud bursting scenarios, as well as disaster recovery uses. And this is an area that I don't know if anybody could have anticipated there being. It's like when you try to anticipate the future problems, you can't do it because you can't see what technologies are going to come out. And some people can. Some people see these things coming. I personally would never be like, oh, someday they're going to have a cloud somewhere in the distance of information. And they're going to also have to have storage and infrastructure on the side to make sure if there's any issues with the cloud that everything still exists and that everything still works. But what if, you ask, there's some sort of, let's say, Terminator-type takeover of the world? I don't know. Or iRobot, TM. I don't know if that's TM. But if there's anything like that, what's going to happen? Well, that's what these people are working on. They're making sure that while everybody's developing these artificial intelligence systems, as well as these hyper-converged infrastructure that are going to be communicating on a daily and annual basis and sharing information, sharing human data, ooh, scary. They're making sure that there are all these safeguards. It's sort of like how the U.S. government is set up, with these checks and balances. There's going to be checks and balances. That's the only way we can keep moving with all this artificial intelligence and make sure that they don't eventually say something like, the safest way to save the human race is to destroy it. Which is what is the plot to basically every sci-fi movie around artificial intelligence. What's cool is that the sci-fi movies are now becoming a reality as days get closer and closer and closer and closer and closer and closer. But what we're going to see is all of these systems built in a way that they're communicating, but also offloading to separate systems that are hyper-converged and able to handle the capacity. And, then you're going to have VPNs built in for, military-grade safety. It's all of this innovation that's taking place at the same time. And a lot of it is based around hyper-converged infrastructure. Because if we didn't have hyper-converged infrastructure, there is legitimately no way we could handle the amount of data that's going to be coming in the future. I mean, we're sitting on a pile of data that is yet to be processed. On a daily basis, if you go on LinkedIn jobs, Indeed jobs, Glassdoor jobs, and you look at the positions that are available, a lot more positions for data analysts and data miners are available, as well as software engineers, because we need systems as well as engineers to be able to take all this data and process it. But in a lot of cases, without converged infrastructure, there's no way that it's humanly possible to do any of this stuff, which is why hyper-converged infrastructure, as I said before, is going to be a $27 billion market. It's the only way that we can find right now to be able to process the amount of data that we have coming in. It's really it's the saving grace for the tech era, and it's one of the main things that's going to help us continue to innovate on an international level as far as tech goes. So let's see what the trends are looking like in this industry, because a lot of people are wondering what the trends are, to see sort of how you can capitalize on this huge market growth, 33% market growth. So let's talk about the evolution of hyperconverged infrastructure. What everybody's saying is it's going to point to the cloud, just like we were talking about just now. Hyperconverged infrastructure is a way to provide cloud-like environment with maintaining closer control over the IT resources. And the best way I can describe what Dell EMC does is they lighten the load on the IT team because they're still necessary. But the reason Dell EMC is the biggest, is the market leader is because of the fact that they have people that are assigned to specific IT teams to basically implement whatever the IT team needs with their converged infrastructure system. Mouthful. So this trend is definitely going to continue. And as we've seen in the market analysis from Berkshire Hathaway, it's actually going to accelerate. The technical solutions architect, Jeff Mercier, at Worldwide Technology, based out of St. Louis, even said most of the HCI vendors are extending their capabilities to the public cloud in order to give seamless integration between the two. This allows customers to use public cloud resources and services while keeping the same manageability across both environments. Brandon Harris, Senior Director of the Business Development Data Center at Logicalis in the U.S., an IT solutions provider and MSP based in New York, said hyper-converged technology was originally data center-centric, competing with cloud infrastructure to a certain degree. Although using HCI to run applications in data center will continue to be important, hyper-converged vendors recognize they need to be able to extend the capability to the cloud in more of a hybrid model. So what's the next trend we're seeing? Well, HCI will spark edge computing. Another trend we're going to be seeing is new vendors and AWS will take a bite out of the traditional HCI. So what we're seeing in general is a lot of competition. We're not only seeing a lot of competition, we're seeing a lot of innovation, and there's going to be new ways to use hyper-converged infrastructure. I hope you understand it by now, but if you don't, definitely do a Google search and check it out. Check how you can take advantage of this incredible market growth. Anyways, stick around and we're going to talk about Logrocket, InVision App, how you can smoke meat with your phone, and some news about a company founded by a man named Steve. See you in a minute.
Do you work in the world of marketing and advertising? Are you a media buyer or the owner of an agency? Have you been looking for a podcast to help stay on top of all the goings-on of those worlds? The GSMC Marketing News Podcast is dedicated to keeping you up to date on all things concerning marketing and advertising. Get the latest marketing news, from what major businesses have planned for the coming year to the newest trends in advertising, from podcasts, digital and streaming, to the old standbys of radio, television, and billboards. The GSMC Marketing News Podcast has you covered, whether you're a marketing agent or a business trying to expand your brand.
Hello and welcome back. My name's Jake Durkin. I am your host. This is the GSMC Technology Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. So, we've talked about converged infrastructure. What comes next? Well, I'm going to talk to you about a couple companies, one InVision App and next Logrocket, after which we're going to talk about how you can smoke meat with your phone. What? And then a little bit about an apple. Well, welcome back. So, who is InVision App and who is Logrocket? It's a weird question, weird names, and why do you need to know about them? Well, if you're a software developer and or a business, I mean, everything's online now. You need to have an app, you need to have a website, everything is online, and you need to know how people are working with those apps. And what do I even mean by that? How are they working with the app? Well, when you launch a website and you launch an app, usually it sends off, and until you get complaints back, you don't know what issues you have, or unless you have people built into your company that are testing them on a daily basis. You know, it's just slow return. And sometimes you don't get the feedback. People just stop using the app, which is brutal because you want to be interacting with your customer base. You want to be keeping them tuned in to what you're doing and how you can better serve them. So that is what InVision App and that is what Logrocket are for. My favorite of the two, InVision App. It helps software developers design better, faster, and together. So the digital product design platform that they built is powering the world's best user experiences. That's at least how they advertise it. And it's not just how they advertise it. They are used by some of the biggest companies in the world, especially the biggest names that you know of in the tech industry. Have you heard of Spotify? Have you heard of Amazon, HBO, IBM, Netflix, Lyft? Not Uber yet, but they're working on it, I'm sure. Well, what their software allows you to do, it's this crazy thing. Sometimes it sounds a little creepy, but it really isn't. It helps them prototype stuff. Whatever app they're working on, it helps them prototype it, and it uses cameras built in, whether it's on your phone or on your MacBook. It uses the cameras built in as well as the user experience that they're tracking at the time, not with just general people. These are test people. It uses it to see where the pain points are, as well as with just general user data. They can see where you had an issue, where you couldn't figure out where to go. And if you just clicked off the website, they're like, wait, why did that happen? Now they have all that data at their fingertips to see exactly where the pain point is and how they can fix it. And what it allows people to do is you can build software and or design to fix the issue and see if it solves it immediately. You can get that feedback and then implement it on a wide scale after using it with just one person. So it's seamless communication. They gather feedback extremely quickly and they move projects forward as a result. And, that's coming from people that work, like the director of product design at Netflix uses InVision app. And he said, InVision allows you to collaborate, experiment, and test much more effectively and efficiently. That's coming from Netflix, who, by the way, everybody uses and everybody's disappointed in lately because, we need more movies, man. Come on. We need more movies. We need more quality stuff to watch. Has anybody noticed that the quality of movies and TV shows, maybe we've just watched them all because #pandemic, but I don't know. I go on both Amazon and Netflix, and every single time, I'm just like, wow, I've either seen all the good movies and TV shows or they're not making them anymore. And I know there's more stuff out there. I don't know why they're not getting their hands on it, but get on it. Eventbrite said freehand makes it a breeze to sketch, draw a wide frame, and get instant feedback on work-in-progress design. So what does that mean? What freehand? Well, that's a part of their app. Or of their software that allows you to literally draw designs and see if they work. You can implement it so quickly, and that's from the product designer, Sundai at Eventbrite. We're looking at so many different responses from incredible product designer at Etsy. Beautiful collection, present designs, inspiration, and more. We use the boards to share initial goals and ideas, show the user flow, and capture inspiration. And that part, little buzzwords in there, user flow. That is one thing that is critical for every company that is going to be implementing growth in terms of online. If you're launching a new website, a new app, and or a new system in general, the user flow, you need to see how people are using your product. And if it flows, if everything is intuitive, and that's, for instance, the reason I work on music and I work in Logic Pro. Why do I do that instead of any other music program? It's because of the fact that it's so intuitive. I look at it and I'm like, this makes sense. I go here, And I didn't go to music school for that or anything. You look at it and you know what to do because it's intuitive. And that's what everybody's going for. The second you use an app or you use a website, think about all those websites that are still up from those small businesses. No offense, small businesses. I love small businesses. We should support all small businesses. But you need to get your website game up because I've seen websites from small businesses, especially in my area, that they look like they were designed in the early 2000s. They do, and nothing makes sense. You don't know where to go. It looks almost like some sort of collage that also is clickable but doesn't really work the way you want it to. You can't find the information you want to. And this is an issue that a lot of people have, especially small businesses. And the beauty with InVision app is that they allow you to set your plan according to your needs as a business and according to your budget. They work with you on pricing because they understand that small businesses can't spend the same amount as HBO, Etsy, Netflix, et cetera, IBM. People can't do that. But what they need to do is implement this technology, because there's so many websites. I go on websites all the time. I'm on my computer like 9 to 5 constantly. And there are so many websites from small businesses that I almost don't want to go into the business anymore because of how bad their website is. It's just like I at least want to walk in there, purchase something from them, and then be like, hey, you guys need to work on that website. That thing is terrible. And I actually ran into a business the other day that didn't have a website. In 2020, they didn't have a website. Anyways, InVision App and Logrocket both do similar things. The difference is that, like I said, I think InVision's better because Logrocket does a little bit of this, but it's more from a software engineer's point of view. And InVision's from both. They're getting a lot of users' data, and they have that interface where you can innovate on a daily basis. You can import and sketch files, or import your existing sketch files or sketch in the app. You can design, prototype, and animate, and collaborate seamlessly with your entire team. And this is all based, not all based, but a lot of it is based in the cloud, so you can access it anywhere. So, InVision, for instance, is a completely remote company, which means that everybody that worked for the company either has the ability to work full-time remote or does. And they have offices in San Francisco as well as in Boston, but these guys just work remote because they've built an interface that just works perfectly, even if you're remote. And they're Skyping on a daily basis, there's Zoom calls, all sorts of stuff like that. But their systems are allowing people to leverage their design system manager and innovate creatively on a very accelerated path and a much larger scale. You can scale up tests on a small base. There's one source of truth, all brand and UX components, including users, documents, and management in a single space. It's easy to maintain, integrate, and there's really no reason to not use InVision app if you're in the modern era and if you're using web-based interfaces. If you have an app, if you have a website, it doesn't matter. These things are changing the game on a daily basis. The app is built by designers to work for designers and to allow the fastest feedback. It's an unprecedented company that's doing so much for innovation of other companies. Think about these big name companies. Those companies don't get involved with other companies unless they're offering a product or system that optimizes their system or their program or their web interface in such a way that it makes it indispensable. These are multi-million-dollar deals that they're doing on a daily basis with companies like Netflix, IBM, HBO, et cetera, et cetera. This stuff is incredible. It speeds up the time of iterating, of doing different iterations and getting feedback by an unbelievable amount. So let's just look at their website. What do they have for products? Well, they have Cloud Prototyping, Cloud Craft, Cloud Inspect, Cloud Freehand, which is what we talked about earlier, where you can literally draw, Studio, Design and Animate, Build and Design Systems, DSM, and Enterprise, Elevate Your Business with Design. And all of these plans have different pricing. Some of them I was actually baffled by. For instance, you go plans designed for every team, free. That's the first one. Free forever, individuals and small teams. And you can have up to 10 active users, up to 3 documents, unlimited public spaces, et cetera, et cetera. Then you go to Pro, which is only $7.95 a month. So you can have 15 active users, unlimited documents and archiving, unlimited public and private spaces. And that both of those plans offer basically all of the applications other than the advanced team and management security, which comes with Enterprise. Enterprise is the only plan that has that. And what you'd be looking at in that case with Enterprise is a made-for-you pricing plan. So you reach out to them and they set the price. Per seat pricing, no user limit. It's unlimited documents, unlimited public and private spaces. You have prototypes, freehand boards, Inspect, Studio, rich animated screen design, integrate integrations, Sketch, Photoshop, Jira, Storybook, and more. As far as collaboration goes, you can comment on the work that's being done and tweak it as a team, provide in-context feedback on any document. And that, as a developer, is indispensable. I mean, in the code, they have comment sections or comment codes so that you can see why someone did something. In this case, you're building the code on more of an aesthetic level, and you can see exactly what is needed and how you need it to interact. The public shares links, makes projects public so anyone can view or comment, guest permissions if you need to bring clients in to view what you're doing. DSM build a documentation site in seconds. Those are the design systems management. DSM Enterprise, live components, version controls, and privacy settings. And for advanced management and security teams, they have specialized admin roles, single sign-on, SSO, and IP restrictions, auto provisions and deprovisions via SCIM, enhanced team security, multi-factor authentication, that's a cool word. Enhanced user audit logging, dedicated customer success manager, priority success. Like, these are the things that they offer, and it's unbelievable. And if you click on their enterprise page, which I've been through this website a million times, it's such a cool company. You just go down and they show you every team member that it can work with and how, I mean, we're looking at 100% of Fortune 100 use InVision to align. Wait. I just read that for the first time. 100% of Fortune 100 use InVision to align engineering and business stakeholders during the product design process. 100%. So the best companies in the world are all using InVision. It's innovation design, it's team endeavor. And the thing that actually weirded me out is when I talked to the guys over at Logrocket is they hadn't heard about InVision. I was shocked because, I mean, Logrocket is a startup, but if they're technically competitors, I mean, InVision already has 100% of the Fortune 100. How would you not know about them? Anyways, Logrocket does similar things, but it's not nearly as far along. For instance, if I type in Logrocket over here, let's go to this, Logrocket. Okay. And sorry if you hear a little bit of clicking in the background. I'm just trying to get the information right in front of my face so that I can read right off their website. So it's Logrocket is more based around bugs. Logrocket lets you replay what users do on your site, helping to reduce bugs and fix issues faster. And they do have some pretty big customers: Reddit, Airbnb, NBC, when I work Carfax. But the thing that confuses me is that that's just one feature of what InVision does. And this company is growing. It's in Boston. It's growing pretty quickly. But I just couldn't believe when I talked to them that they didn't know who InVision App was. It's like one of their main competitors. So as far as a developer goes, this is built more specifically for you, whereas InVision App is built for the wide variety of the team. We're talking designers, we're talking marketing team, with all this. And Logrocket works regardless of the language or the frame, and they provide SDKs for specific technologies. Integrates with tools that are already used like Sentry, Bugsnag, Rollbar, GitHub, Trello, Drift, Zendesk, Intercom, Jira, Segment, all those things. So that's Logrocket, and that is InVision App. Obviously, I am more infatuated with one than the other, but that doesn't mean the other ones aren't good. So coming up next, we're going to talk about how you can smoke meat with your phone, and we're going to talk about a little scandal.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
All right, so we've talked about hyper-converged infrastructure. We've talked about converged infrastructure. We've talked about InVision App as well as Logrocket. What's next? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about smoking meat with your phone, and then stay tuned for some seriously scandalous stuff. All right. So, he mentioned smoking meat with his phone. That is the weirdest thing I have ever heard in my entire life. Is he off the wall? Like, what's going on with this guy? No, I'm serious. This is something that exists. And it exists because there's a wonderful company out there called Traeger. And for those of you who don't know, I love Traeger. I love smoking meat. I lived down in Nashville for about 4 years, and it opened me up to the absolute joy of barbecue. The joy of having barbecue in your life, the joy of smoking meat. So how do you smoke meat with your phone? Well, you can't do it without a Traeger grill. And Traeger grills are the best thing on the face of the planet. I am completely unbiased. I don't love them. I am objective. I'm just kidding. I love them, and I use mine probably 3 times a week to cook ribs, to cook fish, to cook anything really. I don't have the Wi-Fi one, and that's what we're about to talk about, which is Traeger Wi-Fire. It's the future of grilling, and luckily, because Traeger exists, it has arrived. You can take command of your grill from your couch or on the go with a new Wi-Fi controller that connects to your smartphone to the grill via the Traeger app. So what it does is it brings the true power of the Traeger grill to your fingertips, and all you have to do is download the Traeger app, where they also have recipes, by the way. This company, for being a company related to cooking, is so technology heavy. They made a little background about Traeger. So the founders wanted to make smoking meat more, what's the word I'm looking for? Manageable and user-friendly for people who don't have all that experience, like working for a barbecue restaurant or spending years learning how to smoke meat from their grandfather and their dad or whatever. I hadn't smoked meat. I'd had some smoked meat a lot in Nashville, like probably too much. I gained 15 pounds when I first moved there. Don't worry, I lost it. But here's the thing. I didn't know how to smoke any meat. Not even slightly. I'd seen it done. I'd talked to people who had smoked meat. There's this place just outside of Nashville on Percy Priest Lake. It's called Papa Turney's. And by the way, if you've been to Nashville and you've tried all the barbecue, you haven't tried the best barbecue until you've been to Papa Turney's. It is the best barbecue I've ever had in my life. And the guy that runs it is an absolute joy. So is the staff. They have a great blues jam there. It's the coolest spot ever, and it's right on the water. It's lovely. Anyways, so I talked to the guys there about how to smoke meat, but it's pretty complicated on their end. I mean, they have these specific cuts of wood that they use. They have their specific process that they don't really divulge to anybody other than people that work for Papa Turney's, and it's extremely complicated and time intensive. With Traeger grills, which, by the way, I got I think last Christmas, and I don't have the ultra tech version with the Wi-Fi, but I have the simple version, which is enough for me. I mean, it's as simple as putting these wood pellets in the side, and it feeds it into this tray or this bowl that sets them on fire and creates the smoke. And you can set your temperature on the dial, just like an oven, and there's a smoke setting as well as the different temperature settings, all of which get smoke, but you can turn it up to a complete grill setting. So if you go up to 350, it's more of a grill than it is a smoker at that point, but it still smokes it because that smoky flavor. I mean, I made salmon the other day and it had this incredible smoky flavor. It was on there for 20 minutes and it got this great smoky flavor. Plus they give you the rubs that go on it and these incredible recipes that I just love. So with this app that they have, it's got a grill guide to customize your cooking cycles. And that means like you're leveraging their grill guide technology to help you master more different types of meat, different types of, which pellets should you use? Which pellets should you not use for certain types of meat? Which rub should you use? They're very, very clear about what you should use for each thing and what recipe. And they even go into like, these wood pellets will work better with this rub that we also sell. That of course they also sell. And the weirdest part about it is that they sell these rubs and these pellets. It's not weird, I guess, per se. It sort of makes sense, but at first it was weird, is apart from selling them online, they sell them at the hardware store. Like you can obviously get the Traeger smokers there, so that makes sense that they'd be close. But they have the Traeger rubs, and it's just weird, like checking out with like you're picking up a hammer and some nails, and then you're also picking up your barbecue rub at the same place. It's just funny. And these things price in, they're actually pretty pricey, the ones with the Wi-Fi technology, but you're looking at their Pro 575 pellet grill, but all of these are going to be black. And that one is the cheapest, which comes in at around $800. And then you have the Ironwood 650 pellet grill, which is $1,200. And then the Timberline Series 850 pellet grill, which comes in at around $1,800. But let me tell you, the bigger ones, I'm sure, have a lot more surface area and a lot more tech built in. Let's just look at the Timberline, for instance. Let's click on this bad boy. Oh, my gosh, these things are stunning. And then just thinking about how good my cheap model, not cheap, just inexpensive model is, I can't even imagine how good these things are. So let's see what the differences are from my thing. So mine is, holy hell. We got 3 different levels of for grilling, and obviously you get the Wi-Fi connection. It's got, oh my gosh, guys, you have to see this. Just type that in, Timberline Series 850 pellet grill. I need this. I want it. I need it. And then you get your covers with it. Oh my gosh. So we're talking Timberline D2 controller, Wi-Fi technology, Timberline D2 direct drive, turbo temp, grill guide, 3 tiers of stainless steel grates. Oh my gosh. I need that cooking space. Double wall stainless steel interior, pellet sensors, magnetic bamboo cutting board. What? That's included. Magnetic bamboo cutting board. I need this. I need this whole thing. Concealed grease magnet system, management system. Concealed greased management system. Oh my gosh. So this thing weighs around 208 pounds. That's actually pretty heavy. I think it's a lot thicker than mine. And it's 51 inches high. It's got a 28-inch depth and a 46-inch width. And it's beautiful. So the next question would be, what in God's name are you talking about this for, Jake? Well, the idea of Traeger grills is to make it as manageable as possible. They teach you how to smoke. They teach you how to Dougie. They don't do that. They don't teach you how to Dougie. But they have these original wood pellets. The Traeger invented the original wood-fired grill over 30 years ago. Wait, what? Traeger invented the original wood-fired grill over 30 years ago. So that's their first model, I imagine, in Oregon. And they continue to lead the industry as the world's #1 selling wood-fired grill, perfected by decades of mastering the craft of wood-fired cooking. The Traeger grill will transform the way you cook because it creates consistent results every single time. Fuel your hunger for wood-fired flavor with Traeger. And it's true. I wish I didn't buy into it so much. I feel like I'm gullible because, I first got it and I was like, let's see how this goes. And then I try it and I'm like, oh my gosh. I made ribs for the first time on a smoker and they were better than I've had it at a lot of restaurants. Granted, I lived in Nashville, so I got some pretty damn good ribs and barbecue. But I'm telling you, as far as consistency goes, I put those babies on. So I put the rub on. And they have their whole recipe built out. It's super simple. You take the ribs, you put the rub on them, you put them on the grill with outside of tinfoil. You just put them in there for an hour, spritz, hour, take off, put some butter and some brown sugar, tinfoil, hour face down, done. And if you're not living at home like I am right now, working from home like I am now, it's not like you can really do that when you get home from work at 6 o'clock. You'll eat at 10:30. But if you are if you're working from home like everybody is right now, and or you just want a nice weekend delicious meal, I mean, they're the easiest thing to make. They're time intensive, obviously, but not nearly as time intensive as traditional wood-fired grills that, over at Papa Turney's, those boys are going for 24 hours on the lowest heat setting that you could possibly have. And they're delicious as a result. They fall off the bone, but so do these. It's so easy. And being from New England and living on the Cape right now, there is not a single restaurant I can go to that I know of, at least, that makes better ribs than I make on my Traeger. And I'm not trying to sound conceited. It's foolproof with this model. I mean, this you fill it, you set the temperature, and then you put the meat on and basically just forget about it. And that's actually, wait, speaking of which, set it and forget it. That's right on their website. Fuel the fire, so put the wood pellets in, and then you set the temperature and walk away. And you create these incredible flavors. And the beauty of it is that they're using technology to give you more friends. Or at least me. More people like eating my food as a result. And I've always loved cooking, but this makes it so easy to be like the grill guy. Oh, have you had Jake's ribs? Oh my gosh, they're so good. That's becoming a thing. And it's all natural hardwood pellets. And they move into the hopper or by an auger, which is one of those twisty things that feeds it in at a steady rate. And it's ignited by the hot rod to feed the flames and add delicious wood-fired flavor to your food. So we're talking taking technology and using it to give people better food. And I'm telling you, I make ribs maybe twice a week. It's getting a little out of hand. And I'm trying different things now because I'm like, this is like that time back in middle school or early high school where I ate so much Captain Crunch that I couldn't have it for the next 10 years. I still haven't had Captain Crunch, so I guess it's been more I don't want to count the years because I'm going to scare myself. But it's been a long time, and I can't even look at the boxes anymore and have it. So if I keep doing ribs, I'm afraid that's going to happen. So I had fish last night on the Traeger grill, and it was unbelievable. But the fire brings the true flavor of your food to the forefront. So you're dealing with it's not just there's all these different ways to cook and to marinate. I mean, what the fire does is I've noticed it's just it does. It brings out the flavor of the food like no other cooking method I've ever used. And because it's natural wood, I mean, it just makes it this very clean, smoky flavor rather than I'm eating carcinogenic food that's just going to kill me at some point. But yeah, I mean, it's just, this technology is only getting better, and it's so easy. It's so easy. I wish it wasn't as easy because maybe I wouldn't make so much delicious food and I wouldn't have gained 15 pounds since the pandemic. All right, not 15. Well, I actually did gain 15, but I lost it. I realized I got on the scale and I was like, wait a minute. The scale that we talked about, by the way, the Body Plus that we talked about last week, I got in there and I was like, let's see what the damage is. And I was about 15 pounds heavier than maybe more than 20, 25 pounds more than I was. And then I just started collecting that data and doing some damage control. And your boy lost that weight. And that's good. You can lose that weight, but not with the Traeger grill. You can't lose it nearly as fast as I could have if I didn't have this easy way to just cook magnificent food. And you can cook anything from steak to chicken to fish. And actually, they have recipes in their recipe book that you can use in the app. I prefer to have the hard copy, but they have recipes there where you smoke beets and stuff like that hold smoke flavor a lot, and you put it into alcoholic beverages and it creates that smoky flavor, so you don't have to have one of those smoke guns that they have at those incredibly expensive bars and clubs. You don't have to have a smoke gun. You can just put smoky vegetables in there as a nice little treat, and it's out of this world. So we've talked about a few things. My mouth is watering right now because I'm thinking about making more ribs tonight because they're so good, and using this Traeger grill because it's so easy. But so with the app, you can monitor the temperature, you can monitor how long and keep track of it for cooking purposes, and improve the way you're cooking. That's the beauty of how they're using technology to improve your smoking game. And I'm not talking about any other type of smoking other than smoking meat. All right? I do live in Mass, so that means I could talk about it, but I'm not talking about it. So, we've talked about converged infrastructure. We've talked about Logrocket and InVision App, and we've also talked about Traeger now. So what's next?
Are you a business owner? Someone interested in the latest news that might affect your business? Then check out the GSMC Business News Podcast, a show dedicated to keeping you up to date on all things concerning business, technology, and the stock market. Get a head start on the day as we keep you updated on the latest goings-on Wall Street, money, jobs, and technology. The GSMC Business News Podcast has you covered.
All right, so in this next segment, we're going to talk about something that is pretty crazy and just happened. Actually, two things that are pretty crazy and just happened. Both of them are related to a company named after a fruit and founded by a man named Steve. Have you guessed it yet? If you haven't, I would be a little worried because, I've basically been handing this out to you on a silver platter. We're talking about Apple. And there's some crazy news that has just come out in the past couple of days, in the past week, and you're going to be pretty stoked to hear this stuff. So hopefully you didn't skip to the end because you would have missed so much good stuff before. But if you did skip to the end, my name's Jake Durkin. This is the GSMC Technology Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. And today, so far, we've talked about hyper-converged infrastructure. We have talked about InVision App and Logrocket, and we've talked about smoking meat with your phone and with the Traeger grill, the best company on the face of the planet that makes food so easy to make. And what's next? Well, Apple. We're talking about Apple. So what happened in the past week, Jake? What's so big that happened in the past week? Well, two things happened. As I'm pulling up the internet right now, we're looking at the fact that Apple becomes first U.S. company to reach $2 trillion market cap, which in and of itself is crazy. Which is why they're splitting. By the way, they're doing a stock split, and so is Tesla. I'm so pumped to get involved in that. I'm going to put my entire life savings into that thing because I love Tesla. But we're talking about Apple right now. So what happened with Apple apart from them being like, "Hey, we're going to split the stock," and then Elon Musk one-upping them by splitting it 5 ways instead of 4? What happened other than that? Well, two things happened. One, are you a gamer? Because you've probably heard this news. Fortnite has been kicked out of the Apple Store, as well as the Google Store, the Google Play Store, sorry. So why did that happen? Well, if you didn't know this, it might kind of blow your mind a little bit, but Apple takes 30% of all subscriptions, whether that's an in-app purchase and or just purchasing the app in the first place. They take 30%. So if you're wondering, hey, why is that app so overpriced, or why is this subscription so overpriced? It seems like it's a lot more money than I should have to pay for something like this. Well, you can thank Apple and Google Play because they take 30% of whatever is in their store. And if you're wondering how they can possibly do that, I hesitate to mention the word monopoly in the same sentences as Apple and Google, because, that has been the legal battle that they've been in, or at least the conversation that they've been in with Congress and everything. They have an absolute monopoly, and so does Amazon for the same reason, but in a different area of the market. But all these guys, these companies that have these platforms that are like basically stores, they have a monopoly in the respect that like they can set prices and kick people out of their store, and they can keep other people from innovating because they're like, hey, if you're not willing to pay 30%, then stay out. But why did they kick Fortnite out? Well, Fortnite got really tired of biting that 30% bullet. So what did they do? they basically tried to go around Apple and in their own app and around Google. And in their own app, they offered a separate payment option that basically went around Apple instead of doing a subscription in the App Store. And they were basically like, listen, if we can just do an in-app purchase system. They snuck in an update for both iPhone and Android versions of the game that allowed users to pay Epic directly for an in-app purchase instead of using the official sanction system for both platforms. And according to The Verge, what followed was a wild ride. Apple kicked Fortnite off the App Store. Then Epic sued Apple. And finally, there is an in-game video parody of Apple's own 1984 commercial, positioning Apple itself as the monopolist. And now Google is in the conversation. As with Apple, Google requires that games use the Google Play system for in-app purchases. Although the Play Store's rules are somewhat more lax than Apple's when it comes to in-app purchases, Google does draw the line at games. It's quite clear. Developers offering products within a game downloaded in Google Play or providing access to the game content must use Google Play in-app billing as a method of payment. Google's system takes 30% cut, just as Apple does. So Epic's update earlier today ran afoul, and Google took longer to make the decision to ban Fortnite over it. But both companies reached the same conclusion. Later Fortnite, and they kicked them out. So many Fortnite players that are viciously addicted to this game and this overall experience of the game were no longer able to access it, and which is brutal. But the funniest thing is that they were ready. They were ready with the lawsuit, and they were also ready with that 1984 commercial where they put Apple in. I'm sorry. I find that so funny and so clever, but it really does show the foresight. They were willing to risk it, and they knew what was going to happen. And instead of just like, it's like begging forgiveness rather than asking permission, except they're not really begging for forgiveness. They're just putting up a middle finger where they show that Apple is a monopoly and that they're taking too much. But like, think about it, all this compounding. You wonder, how did Apple, I mean, they're selling iPhones at a ridiculous price. They're not as much as they used to be, but they're still selling how much can really go into it? How much do you think it takes to make an iPhone? Let's actually type that in right now. How much does it cost to manufacture an iPhone? Let's see what we got here. And this will show how much they make it. The first, let's see, priced at $12.49, says it cost Apple $443 to manufacture. That's not as shocking as I thought it would be, but the figure comes from Tech Insights Teardown and is less than $50 more than the estimate of the last year's 64. So their new models they're making a profit on each iPhone of around $800. That's a lot of profit. That is a lot of profit. Obviously, we're not talking about advertising and stuff, but I feel like they don't really need to advertise their iPhones. They just announce them and then people go crazy. Like they do that. Oh, Steve Jobs walks out in his turtleneck shirt and announces the iPhone, how it's going to change the world. Rest in peace. And then people just go crazy, foaming at the mouth to get to the Apple Store to buy the next iPhone because it has 16 cameras on it now instead of one. But I mean, I'm not making fun of them. I love Apple. I stick with Apple. But it's so funny. They don't really need to advertise them. Although they do, you know what I mean. Anyways. So they have a stockpile of cash from that, but there's no way they could get as much cash as they have in the bank from just that, could they? Well, think about it. Every single app that they don't invest in, that they don't like, they're not spending R&D, they're not making the apps themselves, they're just hosting a store where people can put them in there. Developers can make apps and have people buy them, and then they take 30%. So say, for instance, if you have Beachbody, if you were into P90X and you got the Beachbody app, $14 a month, they're taking 30% of that. If you have Pimsleur, the language app that I talked about before, it costs $20 a month. They're taking $6 of that, 6 or 7, in between. every single app. Some apps have a lot higher cost to them. But any of these, if you're a photographer and you use these photo editing apps, they're taking 30%. There are millions of apps, maybe not millions. I don't know how many apps there are. How many apps are there in the app? Let's get the answer. This is a fun fact for you. How many apps are there in the Apple App Store? Let's check this out. 2.2 million. There are millions. I was right. 2.2. There are 2.8 apps available for download on Google Play Store and 2.2 apps available in the Apple Store. Wow. That's a lot of apps. So 2.2, and think about how many are monthly subscriptions. The numbers, it's just a residual income where they're just taking in money, not having to do anything to earn it. That's so much money. Let's see if we can get to the bottom of this. I'm wondering how much subscription income does Apple make? Let's see. According to Apple, there are over 450 million paid subscriptions on Apple's platform. Wow. In 2010, that's a while ago, 10 years. Let's just go back there. Why not? Apple service business revenue generated only 5.2 billion in revenue. Over the next 2 years, it doubled to 10.2 billion. And that was 2 years. So that was 2012. That was 8 years ago that they were making 10.2 billion. It's revenue, but how much, if they're not developing it, how much are they really, it's revenue, which if they're not spending on it, it should be all profit or close to all profit. They have to cover expenses for operating it and everything, but that's a boatload of money every single year that they don't have to do a lot other than hosting these apps and helping them put in the updates. But we're talking billions and billions of dollars that they're taking in from this. They take 30% from these guys. And it's wild that this came out. Okay. Anyway, so Fortnite's out of the Apple Store. Everybody's upset about it. What else are we talking about? Well, there's a rat in the room. New Apple leaks reveal iPhone 12 release shock. Okay, so according to Forbes, Apple admits the iPhone 12 release is running late. But it now looks like the wait will be longer than the company suggested. This isn't what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the fact that the iPhone is kind of reverting back to what it used to be. What do you mean by that? You remember when it had, with the iPhone, was it 5? It had that right side that was made of metal. Well, that's what it might look like. Now, it's not definite, but there were pictures that have been leaked showing off how Apple should change its familiar flagship design for this year, and that is to go with the old model. The new iPhone 12 release date and price and specs and leaks. So it's going to look a lot like that silver metal side. Is anybody else upset? Because I'm kind of upset. I liked how clean it was looking. I liked where it was going as far as direction. And honestly, I feel like we've been disappointed by Apple because we expected that in all this time, they could have come out with something that would blow our mind. I will say, though, that if you haven't tried out the iPhone 11, I don't own one. I have an iPhone X. If you haven't tried it out, the camera is ridiculous. And I'm not just talking for taking pictures. I'm talking video. Like when people walk while taking video, it looks, because of the 3 cameras, it has a reductive image. So it basically takes out the corners and makes it look like if you're walking forward with your camera, instead of it being all bumpy, like it's this fluid image that looks like a drone is taking the video. And I've seen someone run with it, and it still is insanely fluid. So that is one positive. But what I was expecting personally is like this, it's getting smaller and smaller, but then it was getting bigger and bigger. And now we're at a point where we don't know where they're going to go. But what I have been upset with is way back in like 2012 or 13, there were these new releases about Gorilla Glass, a company that was potentially going to be partnering with Apple. And Gorilla Glass had invented this type of technology that was basically everything was embedded in it, and it was like a see-through piece of glass that was a computer, basically. And I expected at this point that we would have a see-through iPhone, and we don't. And I'm upset about it. So what should we expect? With the Apple reveal, iPhone 12 range, it's going to be announced next month. And they say it's going to have 5G, which is going to give everybody cancer, which is great. They also said that it's going to be 5.4-inch iPhone. It's going to be a 5.4-inch iPhone. The 6.1-inch iPhone 12 Max and the iPhone 12 Pro equal, the size of the current iPhone, while the iPhone 12 Pro Max will be Apple's largest iPhone yet at 6.7 inches across. So it's getting bigger again. But it's going to look like that. It's going to have that metal side, which I don't know if it's a good idea. It was that clean side. The funny thing is, though, I sort of saw it coming because of the fact that the more curved you make the phone itself on the side, the less space you have to fit things. So they have to reduce the size of everything, which we want them to do. We want them to get smaller and smaller so we can have smaller things. Like, think about it. You're going to have all this wearable tech that they need to make everything smaller so that we can have more wearable tech that is less noticeable. The Apple Watch is incredible by itself, but imagine having wearable tech that you didn't notice in your clothes. This is where it's going. But they want to have more space. And since you're holding a phone anyways, it doesn't matter if it's a little bit, bigger, if they can fit a bigger chip in it. So the leaks that we had this week, they could be true. Leaks come out before every single launch, and sometimes they're true, sometimes they're not. I, for one, hope they're not true. I hope that they come out with something that's really cool, but it's delayed because pandemic, #pandemic. Anyways, so we've talked about a lot. We've talked about converged infrastructure, hyper-converged infrastructure. We've talked about InVision App, Logrocket. We've talked about smoking meat with your phone and Wi-Fi. We've also talked about the Apple leaks, which may or may not be true. And we talked about how funny it is that they take 30% and how Fortnite is now kicked off the app. That's it for this episode. Tune in next episode. And what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about Nikola Aura Smart Ring wearable, ESPN Plus and Disney Plus, and something related to a NASA space helicopter? What? Well, you'll have to wait till next week to hear that one on Monday. My name's Jake Durkin. It's been a pleasure. This is the GSMC Technology Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. See you soon, guys.
Are you looking for a podcast that gives you all of the latest news from the world of finance? Then check out the GSMC Financial News Podcast. We'll delve into the ups and downs of the stock market, changes in the economy, and news from the world of real estate and technology. From breaking news on the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, or the overseas market, to updates on the bond market. If there's money to be made, we'll cover it on the...
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.